The story begins in the dusty streets of Soweto in the 1950s. A young Cyril Ramaphosa grows up in a small house with his parents and two siblings, surrounded by the vibrancy and hardship of township life under apartheid. When he is just a boy, the apartheid authorities forced his family out of their old neighborhood into this sprawling black township. Despite the oppressive laws around him, the child Cyril is inquisitive and bold. In school, he even challenges his teachers if they seem unprepared, a precocious streak that makes him popular among classmates. At home, his father, a retired policeman, instills discipline, while his mother encourages his education. Cyril reads about heroes like Nelson Mandela and dreams quietly that he too might help change his country one day. By the early 1970s, Ramaphosa is a university student, and South Africa is a nation in turmoil. He enrolls to study law at the University of the North, Turflop, a hotbed of dissent. There he's drawn into the rising tide of black consciousness ideals, joining the South African Students' Organization and the Black People's Convention. The gentle young man from Soweto transforms into an outspoken activist, leading campus rallies against apartheid. In 1974, Ramaphosa helps organize a rally celebrating Mozambique's independence from colonial rule, a symbol of hope that Africa can be free. The apartheid regime reacts swiftly. One night, security police arrive and arrest the 21-year-old student leader. They lock him in solitary confinement for 11 months under a draconian terrorism act, in a tiny cell with no light and no reading material, not even a Bible. The days and nights blur together in oppressive silence. Cyril names the ants that crawl across his cell floor, whispering to these tiny creatures as if they were old friends. Each time he hears a distant door clang open, he wonders if another comrade is being released, if his turn to taste freedom will ever come. It is an ordeal that hardens him and teaches him patience and resolve. After almost a year, he is freed, only to be detained again in 1976 when Soweto erupts in student uprisings. This time, he spends 6 months in Johannesburg's infamous John Vorster Square prison. Surviving these dark confinements, Ramaphosa emerges unbroken. He finishes his law degree by correspondence while working as a law clerk, determined to use his education to fight injustice. In the early 1980s, South Africa's mines are the grinding heart of its economy, and the miners, mostly black, working in dangerous conditions, have no strong voice. Ramaphosa, fresh out of law school, sets out to change that. In 1982, he is asked by a union federation to help organize mine workers. Traveling deep into gold and platinum country, he listens to miners' grievances in their hostels and humble homes. That same year, alongside two veterans, he launches the National Union of Mine Workers, NUM, and becomes its first Secretary General. The timing is explosive. Apartheid authorities and mine owners both view black unions with suspicion. But Ramaphosa throws himself into the work. He proves to be a gifted organizer. Under his leadership, the NUM grows from 6,000 members at birth to 300,000 a decade later, becoming the most powerful union in the country. He leads bold strikes, including a historic miners' strike in 1987 that shakes the industry's foundations. For Ramaphosa, each confrontation with the wealthy mine bosses is a test of will. Standing before crowds of hard-hatted miners, he raises a hand in the air and declares, "We will not be treated as slaves in our own land." His charisma and determination galvanize the workers. The media begins calling him a champion of the people, even comparing him to Lech Walesa, the Polish union leader who challenged communism. South Africa's Lech Walesa. With each victory, Cyril Ramaphosa's name grows synonymous with resistance. By the late 1980s, he is not just a unionist, but a national figure in the broader fight against apartheid. He helps form the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, and forges alliances with community groups in the mass democratic movement. These activities put him further in the crosshairs of the apartheid state. In 1986, as police repression intensifies, Ramaphosa goes into hiding to evade arrest, moving between safe houses under the cover of darkness. Through all the close calls and clandestine meetings, he remains committed to peaceful mass action. Later, he would insist that despite his socialist ideals, he always sought change through negotiation, not violence. 11th February 1990, a date that Ramaphosa would never forget. Apartheid's walls are crumbling. Nelson Mandela is to be released after 27 years in prison, and Ramaphosa is given the honor of coordinating his homecoming. As chairman of the National Reception Committee, he makes sure everything is ready. That day at Cape Town's Grand Parade, Ramaphosa stands on the podium, barely able to contain his emotion as the crowd surges. Moments later, Mandela appears, dignified, gray-haired, fist raised in triumph. The young union leader, who had spent his own youth in solitary confinement for this very dream, steps forward to hold the microphone for Mandela, literally and symbolically supporting the elder statesman. In the roar of applause, tears glisten in Cyril's eyes. It feels like a new dawn. In the months that follow, the African National Congress, ANC, now unbanned, needs skilled negotiators to talk with the apartheid government. Mandela sees Ramaphosa's talent and charisma and brings him into the ANC's top team. In July 1991, at the ANC's first conference back on home soil, Ramaphosa is elected Secretary General of the party, one of Mandela's key lieutenants. His first assignment: help lead the negotiations to end apartheid. In the convention halls of Johannesburg and Pretoria, Ramaphosa proves indispensable. He is in his late 30s, energetic and known for a quick smile, able to find common ground, even with adversaries. Across the table sits the government's lead envoy, Rolf Meyer. The two men strike up an unlikely friendship. Their warm rapport animated the defining story of the age, one observer noted. During coffee breaks, Ramaphosa jokes about soccer with Meyer. In tense all-night sessions, he uses his easygoing nature to diffuse conflicts. It is Ramaphosa who often breaks the deadlocks with a clever compromise, earning trust from all sides. As negotiations stretch on, violence and suspicion threaten to derail the peace process. But Cyril remains steadfast. He later reflects that negotiation is like mining. You chip away patiently for the treasure of peace. In April 1994, South Africa finally holds its first democratic election. The world watches as Black South Africans vote for the first time. Mandela wins the presidency, and in the joyous inauguration that follows, Ramaphosa is there as a proud member of parliament and Mandela's trusted aide. With democracy achieved, Ramaphosa takes on the next great task, building a new South African constitution. In May 1994, he is elected chair of the Constitutional Assembly, charged with drafting a supreme law for the nation. For 2 years, he pours his soul into this project, hashing out a Bill of Rights, balancing the demands of different communities. Late nights see him hunched over documents in Cape Town's parliament, fine-tuning phrases that will guarantee equality and dignity for generations to come. When the Constitution is finally adopted in 1996, it is lauded as one of the most progressive in the world, a charter that bans discrimination and enshrines human rights. South Africans cheer this achievement, knowing it was shaped through the great care and hard work of Ramaphosa and many others. And yet, amid the triumph, Ramaphosa faces personal heartbreak. By now, it is an open secret that Nelson Mandela views Cyril as a kind of political son, even as a possible successor one day. But others in the ANC have different plans. Thabo Mbeki, who had been Mandela's deputy president, is seen as the heir apparent. In December 1997, at the ANC's conference, Mbeki is elevated to party president. Ramaphosa, despite his brilliance and popularity, is passed over. One account recalls, it was well known that Mandela preferred him as his heir, but the ANC wanted its crown prince, Mbeki, instead. For Cyril, the disappointment cuts deep. He forces a smile at the conference, congratulating Mbeki, but inside, he is bruised and weary. After dedicating his youth to the struggle, he suddenly finds his path to the top to be blocked. Rather than sow division, Ramaphosa makes a wrenching decision. He steps back from politics altogether. In June 1996, he resigns from parliament and his post as ANC Secretary General, retreating from the front lines of public life. Many in the movement are stunned. One of their brightest stars is walking away. Mandela himself is said to have been saddened by Ramaphosa's exit, but he respected the choice. As one newspaper noted at the time, Cyril's departure appeared to lessen chances of a leadership rift in the ANC. Ramaphosa is only 43, but he carries the scars of decades of struggle and perhaps a sense of betrayal. In his own quiet way, he mourns the dream of leading the nation politically. Yet true to his character, he does not wallow for long. He tells friends that South Africa's freedom is secure. Now he will pursue a different challenge: economic freedom. Ramaphosa throws himself into business with the same zeal he once brought to union organizing. In the late 1990s and 2000s, a new term enters South Africa's vocabulary: Black Economic Empowerment, BEE, a program to bring Black South Africans into the upper ranks of the economy after decades of exclusion. Cyril Ramaphosa becomes one of BEE's poster children. He founds an investment holding company, Shanduka Group, and begins building a corporate empire. Mining, real estate, banking, telecommunications, he has a finger in all. By the 2010s, his ventures are wildly lucrative. He secures the exclusive franchise to operate McDonald's restaurants in South Africa, chairs the board of a major cell phone company, MTN, sits on the boards of mining giants and insurance firms. The former Union firebrand proves to have a shrewd business mind, and partnerships with influential conglomerates make him fabulously wealthy. By 2015, his net worth is estimated around $450 million, vaulting him into the ranks of the richest South Africans. The irony is not lost on the public. The one-time socialist who championed workers now travels by private jet and breeds prized cattle on his sprawling farms. Some criticize him, saying he has sold out and joined the elite he once opposed. Ramaphosa counters that by succeeding in business, he is opening doors for black entrepreneurship and proving that liberation also means economic empowerment. But business success comes at a price to his reputation. He increasingly moves in the circles of the powerful and wealthy, sometimes partnering with figures from the old white business establishment. This raises eyebrows. "He's too close to the tycoons now," grumble former comrades. Over time, Ramaphosa's image begins to shift from fiery man of the people to a conciliatory corporate fixer. Nothing illustrates this shift more starkly than the tragedy of Marikana. In August 2012, long after Ramaphosa's days as a mining union leader, a wildcat strike erupts at the Lonmin Platinum Mine in Marikana. The situation turns violent. 10 people, including 2 police officers, lost their lives in the unrest. Lonmin's management and government officials scramble to respond. At this time, Ramaphosa sits on Lonmin's board of directors, a respected businessman tasked with advising the company. As the strike worsens, he fires off emails urging authorities to act decisively. In one email, he labels the striking workers' actions dastardly criminal and calls for concomitant action to restore order. He is, perhaps, recalling the terror of the violence and hoping to prevent further bloodshed. But his words prove fateful. On the 16th of August, 2012, police open fire on the Marikana miners during a standoff, taking the lives of 34 of them in a hail of bullets, the deadliest use of force by South African security since apartheid's end. The nation is stunned. Televised images of officers gunning down black workers in the dust shock the public, invoking memories of apartheid-era massacres. And then, Ramaphosa's emails come to light. Outrage erupts when it is revealed that the former hero of the mine workers had urged a crackdown. "He was one of us. Now he has blood on his hands," cries a miner's widow on the evening news. Ramaphosa quickly finds himself cast as a villain by many. Once he had been celebrated for leading a miner strike, now he is accused of betraying the very workers he used to fight for. The international press notes the cruel contrast. Ramaphosa, once called South Africa's Lech Walesa after the Polish labor leader, now finds himself pilloried as a cold-hearted capitalist, observes Reuters. Summoned before a commission of inquiry, Ramaphosa defends himself in measured tones. "With a grave situation unfolding at the mine, I felt duty-bound to help, to prevent further loss of life," he tells the inquiry panel, insisting he never intended violence. The commission eventually clears him of direct responsibility for the killings, finding primary fault with the police and company. But the stain on Ramaphosa's legacy is not easily scrubbed away. In Parliament, opposition MPs heckle him as the butcher of Marikana. Protesters wave signs calling him a sellout. The anguish in Cyril's face is visible whenever Marikana is mentioned. Those close to him say he was deeply pained that his actions were seen as a betrayal. He publicly apologizes for his choice of words during the crisis, admitting he should have handled things differently. Marikana should not have happened. We are all to blame, and we must make sure it never ever happens again, he says somberly in one radio interview, taking collective responsibility for the tragedy. The Marikana massacre becomes a ghost that will haunt Ramaphosa's conscience for years. It is a turning point, reminding him and the nation of the complex tightrope he walks between being a man of the people and a member of the elite. Even as Marikana's shadow looms, another dramatic chapter of Cyril Ramaphosa's life is unfolding. His return to the political arena. By the early 2010s, South Africa's young democracy is struggling. The ruling ANC, though still revered for liberating the country, is mired in infighting and corruption scandals. President Jacob Zuma's tenure has been rocked by accusations of state capture, private interests looting government resources, and the once glorious ANC seems adrift. Many South Africans yearn for principled leadership. In ANC circles, whispers grow louder that Ramaphosa should come back from the wilderness. He is seen as relatively untainted by the Zuma-era scandals and respected across society. At first, Cyril demurs. He has a comfortable life and still remembers the bitter taste of political defeat. But party elders persist. In 2012, as the ANC prepares for a crucial elective conference, various branches and veterans nominate Ramaphosa for the position of Deputy President of the ANC. The pressure mounts. In May that year, a senior ANC figure, Derek Hanekom, even says publicly, "We need leaders of Comrade Cyril's caliber. I really wish he would put all his money in a trust and step up for a higher position," calling on Ramaphosa to sacrifice his business empire for his country. Ramaphosa laughs it off at first. "Don't read anything into that. He was joking," he insists. But behind closed doors, he begins to contemplate a return. Finally, on the eve of the ANC's 53rd National Conference in December 2012, Cyril Ramaphosa consents to run. It is like a prodigal son returning. When the internal vote is held, Ramaphosa wins an overwhelming victory, garnering over 3,000 votes for ANC Deputy President, far ahead of the nearest contenders. The conference floor erupts in celebration at the announcement. Delegates break into song, and a grinning Ramaphosa gives a humble wave, knowing the real work lies ahead. Ramaphosa waves to the ANC conference after being elected deputy president in 2012. For the first time in over a decade, Cyril is back in the heart of the ANC leadership. President Jacob Zuma, battling to bolster his own credibility, is pleased to have Ramaphosa on board as his new deputy. It lends a reformist glow to the administration. In May 2014, after the ANC wins the national elections, Ramaphosa is sworn in as Deputy President of South Africa, officially the nation's second in command. He immediately sets about disentangling himself from his vast business holdings to avoid conflicts of interest, selling off shares and stepping down from corporate boards. He places many of his assets in a blind trust. It is a significant personal sacrifice, but one he makes to signal that public service comes first. Observers note that Ramaphosa, the billionaire, is taking a hefty pay cut to work in government. But for Cyril, this is a homecoming. Walking into the Union buildings, the seat of the presidency in Pretoria, in a crisp suit, he quietly reminds himself why he started this journey decades ago in Soweto streets. Serving under President Zuma, however, proves to be a delicate and often frustrating role for Ramaphosa. Zuma's administration is marred by endless controversy, from upgrades to his private homestead with public funds, to allegations that the wealthy Gupta family controlled cabinet appointments in what became known as the state capture scandal. As deputy president, Ramaphosa is bound by loyalty to support the head of state, but privately, he and others in government grow increasingly alarmed at the corruption and mismanagement. Cyril is tasked with various responsibilities: heading an anti-poverty commission, mediating labor disputes, representing South Africa abroad, and he performs dutifully. But he remains careful not to openly challenge Zuma, mindful that the ANC values unity. Insiders describe Ramaphosa during these years as walking a tightrope, trying to push for cleaner governance, but not provoking open warfare within his party. By 2016, with the economy lagging and public trust in the government at an all-time low, Ramaphosa decides it is time to make his move. Zuma is approaching the end of his term as ANC president, and a leadership race is on the horizon. Despite the risks, Cyril throws his hat in the ring to become the next ANC president, effectively declaring that he intends to succeed Zuma as the country's leader. He launches a campaign in 2017 promising a new deal for South Africa and openly condemning corruption. He runs under the banner of anti-corruption and renewal, vowing to restore the values of the ANC's founders. Powerful factions in the ANC oppose him. Zuma himself favors his former wife, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, to carry on his legacy and protect him from potential prosecution. The battle lines are drawn. Reformers and trade union allies rally behind Ramaphosa, while others, especially those who benefited under Zuma's patronage, line up behind Dlamini Zuma. The party's December 2017 elective conference at Nasrec in Johannesburg is one of the most dramatic political showdowns in ANC history. Tensions run high as delegates vote. When the results are announced, they show Ramaphosa has won, but just barely. He secures the ANC presidency by a slim margin, 2,440 votes to his opponent's 2,261. The room erupts in both cheers and gasps. The ANC has a new leader, and the course of the country is about to change. Ramaphosa's victory is hailed by many as a return to sanity for the ANC. After the result, he addresses the conference with unifying words, pledging to root out corruption in the party and restore the ANC's moral compass. Yet he is well aware that a wounded Jacob Zuma remains president of the country until 2019, an awkward situation with two centers of power. Over the next weeks, behind closed doors, Ramaphosa and senior ANC figures engage in sensitive negotiations to manage a transition of power. Scandals swirling around Zuma, including a pending no-confidence motion and a damning judicial inquiry into state capture, increase the pressure. Finally, in February 2018, the ANC's National Executive Committee decides decisively to recall Zuma from office. Facing mounting isolation, Zuma resigns on Valentine's Day 2018. The very next day, Parliament convenes and elects Cyril Ramaphosa as President of South Africa. As the vote result is announced, members of Parliament break into spontaneous song, an exuberant chorus echoing through the chamber, celebrating what they hope will be a fresh start for the nation. Ramaphosa, now 65 years old, raises his right hand and takes the oath of office, a gentle smile on his face, portraying both gratitude and determination. The presidency of Cyril Ramaphosa begins with a sense of national renewal. In his first address to the nation, he invokes the memory of Nelson Mandela, his mentor and friend, as a guiding light. Guided by Mandela's example, we will reinforce our commitment to ethical behavior and leadership. We are not merely honoring the past, but building the future. South Africa belongs to all who live in it, he declares, echoing Mandela's famous words. In a moment that brings many to tears, Ramaphosa speaks of a new dawn emerging after the dark night of corruption and division. It is a new dawn, inspired by our collective memory of Nelson Mandela and the changes that are unfolding. We will build a new nation and confront the injustices of the past and the inequalities of the present, he promises, to thunderous applause. South Africans, weary of scandals, respond with cautious hope. Here is a president who was with Mandela at the beginning of the journey. Perhaps he can steer the country back on course. In those early days, optimism surges, the currency strengthens, investors smile, and the public mood lifts in a Ramaphosa wave. Ramaphosa launches an ambitious plan to reform state-owned companies that had been drained by graft, and he replaces key officials implicated in wrongdoing with reputable professionals. He establishes a commission of inquiry into state capture, the Zondo Commission, to uncover the extent of corruption under Zuma. He also works to revive the economy, courting foreign investment and announcing stimulus measures to tackle unemployment. On the international stage, Ramaphosa projects the image of a pragmatic, business-friendly leader, even chairing the African Union in 2020 and coordinating Africa's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. But soon, the realities of governing a fractured party and a struggling nation set in. Within the ANC, Ramaphosa's crusade to clean up meets resistance. In 2021, he pushes a new rule that any party official charged with corruption must step aside from their position, a bold move to set an example. When the ANC's powerful Secretary General, Ace Mahashule, is implicated in graft, Ramaphosa insists Mahashule step down. Mahashule retaliates with a stunt, attempting to suspend Ramaphosa in turn, a move that holds no legal water, but signals the fierce internal backlash Ramaphosa faces. The president stands his ground, weathering the intra-party storms. Step by step, he tries to excise the cancer of corruption from the ANC's ranks, all while keeping the party unified, a Herculean task. Outside of politics, everyday South Africans demand results. Ramaphosa's administration struggles with stubbornly high unemployment and frequent electricity blackouts, a crisis inherited from years of mismanagement at the power utility. As months pass, critics begin to question whether the new dawn is delivering enough change. By 2022, the Zondo Commission concludes its work, revealing in staggering detail how billions were looted from state during the Zuma era. The report even notes that Deputy President Ramaphosa, during those years, perhaps could have done more to resist the plunder, a gentle rebuke that Cyril accepts solemnly. He responds by reiterating that renewal is a process and vows that those responsible will be brought to justice. Then, in mid-2022, a scandal of a more personal nature jolts Ramaphosa's presidency. News breaks of a bizarre theft at the president's private game farm, Pala Pala. 2 years earlier, in 2020, burglars had snuck into his farmhouse and stolen a large sum of US dollars that had been hidden in a sofa. The public only learns of this now because a political opponent leaks a complaint, alleging Ramaphosa covered up the incident. The story, dubbed Farmgate by the media, is sensational. How much money was it, and why was it in cash? Ramaphosa admits that there was money stolen, but claims it was about $580,000 from the sale of rare buffalo, not the $4 million that some have alleged. Skeptics abound. An independent panel led by a former Chief Justice finds that the affair raises substantial doubt about the president's account. For Ramaphosa, it is a moment of profound crisis. Here he is, trying to lead an anti-corruption drive, only to be accused of hiding wads of cash in his furniture. The irony is painful. In December 2022, facing a potential impeachment process, Ramaphosa is on the verge of resigning in disgrace. Yet, with trademark resilience, he fights back, rallying support within the ANC and challenging the panel's findings. Ultimately, Parliament votes against impeachment and Ramaphosa survives, though his image suffers. He apologizes to the nation for the distraction and pledges to be more transparent. Those close to him say he was shaken by how quickly allies could turn against him, but also steeled by the realization that his mission was far from over. The final act of this ongoing saga comes in 2024, a watershed election year. By now, Cyril Ramaphosa is in his 70s, a grandfather as well as president, and he has seen his country through storms. As South Africa heads to general elections, the political landscape has changed. The glow of liberation history has faded for the younger generation. They care less about past heroes and more about present delivery. Ramaphosa campaigns hard, acknowledging the government's shortcomings, but urging voters to give him a chance to fully implement reforms. Tuma Mena, send me, he says, quoting a song by Hugh Masekela that inspired his 2018 agenda. The results come as a cold dose of reality. The once mighty ANC, for the first time in history, fails to win an outright majority of the vote. Decades of frustration over inequality and services translate into a loss of support. Ramaphosa's ANC secures only about 46%, still the highest, but not enough to govern alone. South Africa faces the prospect of a coalition government. Ramaphosa moves quickly and shrewdly. To keep the ANC in power, he strikes an unprecedented deal with several smaller opposition parties. In a surprise to many, he even reaches out to the centrist Democratic Alliance, DA, the ANC's traditional rival, forging a coalition that spans the political spectrum. By mid-June 2024, Parliament assembles to elect the president. Backed by this new alliance, Ramaphosa wins a second term with 283 votes, handily defeating the radical economic freedom fighters candidate, Julius Malema, who garners 44 votes. It is a dramatic save, but it comes with compromises. Key ministries are handed to opposition figures, and the ANC must govern alongside parties it once denounced. Ramaphosa frames it as a government of national unity for a new era. Standing before Parliament, he emphasizes that the voters signaled a desire for politicians to put aside petty squabbles. Through their votes, they determined that the leaders of our country should set aside their political differences and come together as one to overcome the severe challenges that confront our nation, Ramaphosa tells the nation. They sent a clear message that without unity, cooperation, and partnership, our efforts to end poverty, unemployment, and inequality will not succeed. These words underscore his lifelong belief in consensus and collective effort. From the union bargaining table to the constitutional negotiations, and now to coalition government. Yet, not everyone is convinced. To his left, Julius Malema lambasts the coalition as a betrayal. Malema, once a fiery youth leader in the ANC and now a fierce opponent, calls Ramaphosa a sellout. President Ramaphosa has once more sold out South Africa by joining hands with the very opposition the ANC fought against. Malema even dredges up an old allegation, claiming that Ramaphosa sold out during the 1994 transition too. A pointed reminder of how some in the radical camp view the negotiated settlement that Ramaphosa helped craft. Such accusations sting, but Cyril meets them with calm. After all, he has spent a lifetime balancing on the tightrope between ideals and pragmatism. As we reflect on the past, we imagine Cyril Ramaphosa at his desk in the presidential office in Pretoria, the late afternoon sun slanting through the window. On the wall hangs a photograph of him in 1990, standing just behind Nelson Mandela at a rally, youthful and hopeful. Scattered on the desk are documents, plans for economic revival, reports on anti-corruption reforms, the to-do list of a man still trying to fix his beloved country. His face now carries the lines of age and experience. It is the face of someone who has been a student prisoner in solitary confinement, a fiery union leader on a stage, a smooth negotiator in wood-paneled rooms, a magnate in boardrooms, and a president facing the weight of a nation's expectations. Ramaphosa's journey has been anything but straight. It has careened from triumphant highs to crushing lows, from global accolades to public vilification. He has known the elation of victory and the loneliness of defeat. He has wrestled with his conscience and the complexities of power. Yet, through it all, he remains, at his core, a man of steady resolve. Those who know him often describe his demeanor with the Tswana word seriti, a kind of quiet dignity. In one poignant interview, reflecting on his life, Ramaphosa said, "I have never sold out anyone. All I have ever done is fight for the liberation of our people." It is a fight, he continues, on new fronts and with new tools, but with the same fundamental belief in justice that propelled a schoolboy from Soweto to the nation's highest office. Cyril Ramaphosa's story is still being written. Ramaphosa, for all his titles and wealth, is still that boy from Soweto who dreamed of a better nation. His life has unfolded alongside the life of his country, each shaping the other through struggle and hope. In the end, Ramaphosa's journey is a testament to the power of resilience and dialogue. It is the tale of a man who has been a unifier, often choosing negotiation over conflict, whether dealing with apartheid officials, mining bosses, or rival politicians. And it is a tale of a man who time and again has been called upon to mend what is broken: a labor dispute, a constitution, a ruling party, a country's faith in itself.